There is beyond the azure blue a God concealed from human sight. All right, welcome back. We're glad to have you if you have been following along with our video series. And we have been talking about videos about God, important questions. And so today we want to tackle an important one, probably one of the most important ones to most people. We've talked about things we need to ask to know about God. So today we want to deal with what is our purpose? Why did God create us? And that's going to bring up the question in our study. Why put us here in the first place? So we're excited to get into that. Now, if you're in the area, we just want to make sure you know that anytime during the week you can stop by the church. If you want to schedule time to learn and where you'd like to learn more about God and the Bible, you can reach out to the email. You can reach out to Whitmore Jesus 416 at Gmail. You can reach out and send us a message on the Instagram page, which is simply Whitmore Jesus, just like that, spelled like that, no underscores or anything. And anytime you want to stop by, but we certainly would be glad if you joined us on Sunday at 10:30. But we're excited for this lesson today, and as I'm sure you see, a little different setup than just me. We have Adam here joining us for this discussion, and we're happy to have him.
Thank you.
All right, so the first place I guess we could start is Genesis chapter 1. If you don't mind, Adam, you can start us off by reading verses 26 and 27.
Chapter 1?
Yes.
Where are we at? Where is 25 in chapter 1? Oh.
Yeah. There's one page back. Where's 26?
Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them.
Perfect. So, first thing we see is that the word Adam, the word for man, it says God created him. So God created man. But male and female, he created them. So the word Adam, which is your name, Adam. So that wasn't planned or anything, but it refers to humans, male and female, not just the man. And so both men and women are equally made in the image of God. And we saw, leading up to the chapter, for example, in verses 6 through 10, God had separated the waters below the heavens, which just refers to the sky, to the water that was above. God separated the dry land from the water, and God separated the trees to be made according to their kind. You see that in verses 11 through 13. And he separated the birds and the sea creatures according to their kind in verses 20 to about 22. And then he separated the land animals in verses 24 to 25 according to their kind, meaning they could only reproduce whatever kind they are. It's not the same as species, but a kind, a cat, a dog, a bird, so on and so forth. And so verse 26 and 27, which you just read, that we were made according to God's image, after his likeness. And so in some way we were made like God. And we're going to go over 3 ways we were made in God's image today. So, all that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good. So we're just going to continue on reading then?
Yeah. So we'll go over those three things a little later. But actually, we got all we need from those two verses here. And now we can go to chapter 2, and if you'll read for us verse 7.
Then the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature.
Okay, so he formed man with the dust of the ground. So the word Adam does refer to man, but really the technical meaning of the word is dust or dirt. And that is because he made man out of dirt. He formed him out of dirt. But there's a part to man that is not tied to the physical creation. In this series, we've gone over the fact that there is spiritual, God is spirit, and there are other spiritual beings. And then there's the physical creation which God made. So our bodies were formed out of the physical creation. But there's another part where he says that we were not alive until God breathed in us the breath of life.
So he created our soul and our spirit all at once when he breathed into us.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but when you go to chapter 1 and verse 30, he says, "And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I give him the green plant for food." So I do think it's this idea that you can create the physical part, and you can create the body, but what is going to make the thing come alive and breathe and move? Well, only God created life. But I think the spirit and the soul has more to do with us being made in God's image. And we're going to, as you go through the Bible, we're told throughout it that we have a spirit and a soul as well. But we also have a body. And so we have, I think what we're seeing here is we have a physical body tied to the physical and natural world, the creation. But we're going to see that we also have, and it's part of being made in God's image, because God is a spirit, a soul, which is also a spirit.
So what's the difference between the soul and the spirit?
Well, they're very similar, and I think you just look at, for example, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And one of those, actually before the other ones, is after heart, is with all your soul. And that idea is life. We read that in other places that refer to Noah, that during the flood, 8 souls were saved. Why does it say souls instead of life? Because that's what that word means. But it's beyond the physical body. It's your life, who you are. Jesus said that not to fear the one who can kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but the one who can kill both soul and body in hell, or destroy both soul and body in hell. So the idea is our total life doesn't just end when our physical body dies. We still have a life that goes beyond death in this world. So soul has a lot to do with who we are, our individuality, our own personal life. While as spirit, a lot of times is referring to that part of us that is not physical. It's spiritual like God. It's not, we have a part of us that is not tied to this physical and natural world. And so because of that, there are times in the Bible where soul and spirit is used, both words are used to refer to the same thing, that spiritual side to us. So that's kind of, I say short answer, but you might be saying, well, that sounded kind of like a long answer to me, but sometimes it's used to be the same, while other times there are little differences between the two, like what we've already mentioned.
Okay.
So, one of the ways is that spirit that we're made in His image, because we're unlike any other created thing but being made in His image. Another way, which I failed to mention, is back in chapter 1, verse 28. After He created man, what did He tell man to do?
Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. He told them to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah. But after that is the part we want to focus on.
And fill the earth and subdue it.
And subdue it and have dominion. So the word subdue and dominion is that same word in verse 16 when it says God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. And in verse 18 to rule over the day and over the night. So he created man to rule over.
So kind of like how he created the light to rule over darkness.
Yeah, the same thing. So the only two things he created to rule over was the light over darkness. And then man, the idea there is, God is the ultimate ruler. God is, it means power. He's the ultimate power. And that means he's the ruler. But he gave us the responsibility and the ability to rule over his physical creation.
Right.
And so we are like God. We're made in his likeness in the sense that just as he rules all things, we are able to manage or rule over creation.
Or to rule over sin as well.
Yeah, it's good you bring that up because it does become a conversation of sin. We know later in the Bible, the light ruling over darkness in more than one place is used to say that righteousness or the right thing to do is to rule over sin and not do it. You know, Jesus says we're the light of the world, referring to his followers. And John says that Jesus came as the light to overcome the darkness. In Thessalonians, Paul says that we are not of the day, we are of the day and we are not of the night or the darkness. But he says there we are sons of light. And even right now, in the following chapters, when sin gets introduced, we're going to see some examples of people who had the desire to sin, and they were supposed to rule over that desire. But what we're going to see is they weren't able to do it. And so this becomes a discussion of darkness is sin, and light is the right thing. And we're supposed, when we have a desire to do differently than what God says, we're supposed to be able to rule over that. But the problem is we usually don't do that. And neither did these examples in the Bible that we'll read about.
Right, many people probably don't read their Bible enough to even know, put all that together.
Yeah, I think, and you say that, and it's a good thing that it gets pointed out because what we're going through looking through Genesis is that these studies and these chapters and these examples fit together. You know, a lot of people might read these things and they might not see how these stories connect together and what the message is. They might just see, okay, he created them, then there's the Garden of Eden, and there's the flood. But it just looks like a series of stories. But what we're doing now is we're seeing that there was a purpose for why man was created, but there was a problem, sin, that got in the way. But then you have God's love and mercy. He doesn't want us to suffer the consequences of it, eternally. And so God has to do something about it to help us.
But that is true. Most people would probably look at the Bible, and I can see why they would be like overwhelmed, and it'd be confusing for them pretty much.
Yeah.
But obviously that's why you're making the videos.
Yeah, exactly. But so part of us is tied to the physical creation, but we have more than that. When we're made in his image, we have a spirit, as God has a spirit, and we were given responsibility to rule over the creation the proper way. But again, we failed to do that, as these first humans also did. But then we get now to verse 18, if you'd read that one for us.
Chapter 2.
Yeah, chapter 2, verse 18.
Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him."
Okay, good. Well, that might be just a good place to make a comment that is that same word Adam. So it refers to mankind. And so it's not good for a man to be alone. It's not good for a woman to be alone. It's not good for humans to be alone. This is about companionship and how we were made social creatures. But the ultimate fix for that is the blessing that God gives in marriage. And so that's the direction he's going. And so now read verses 19 to 20.
Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all livestock and to the birds of the... Wait, did I go too far?
No, that's good.
Okay.
You can finish that verse.
To the birds of the heavens and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him.
Perfect. So you have the part that begins that section you read, that it's not good for man to be alone. And God says, I'll make a helper fit for him. And then you have all the animals brought to him. And then he ends the section by saying there was not found a helper fit for him. And so that tells us the point. We kind of smile because it's like, why is he bringing him all the animals to look at? Surely he didn't think he was going to marry one of those. Well, obviously God knows that. But by looking at how he begins this and ends this, there was not found a helper fit for him. The reason God does this is to show him that none of these other creatures I created are going to fill your loneliness. None of them are going to complete you. And this shows us the incredible value that God, through the Bible, gives to women. Because look then at verses 21 and 22.
So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man he made into a woman and brought her to the man.
Okay, perfect. So no other created thing on the planet is going to have value to the man and is going to be able to complete the man. What the man is missing, like the woman is. And so it's said here because it is talking about marriage. And the only thing that will complete what the man is missing is the woman. And that makes her, and we know how valuable the man already is compared to the rest of creation, but that also makes her the most valuable created thing that God made. And it would be vice versa. It's not good for the woman to be alone. It's that same word Adam. And so the only one who can complete her is that other piece, man. And so they help each other out. One half completes the other half. And then we see verse 23. Then the man said, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. And so early on, God reveals how is the man to treat his wife, like his own bones, like his own flesh, like his own skin. And later on in the New Testament, Paul will say that a man ought to love his wife the same way that Christ loved the church and gave his life for her. And he says, no man ever hated his own flesh. Meaning that no man ever hated his own body. So he's going to treat his wife and cherish her and appreciate her the same as himself. But the reason we bring it up here is because now we see both parts, the man and the woman. They both have the image of God. They're equally made in God's image, and both are extremely valuable to each other. They are irreplaceable. And so even in a time, written so many centuries ago, where a lot of people would have an agenda against women and try and look down on them, the Bible would have been unpopular in this message because the Bible makes it clear the value of their soul, the value of them being in God's image is the same. They're equal. Now, there might be different jobs, there might be different personalities, there might be different roles they play, as there must be differences between men and women, because if they were the same, one could not complete the other, but the other is missing.
That's true.
But the value of their soul is the same to God. The importance of them to God is the same, and they are both made in God's image. They're equal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And stuff like this, it increases our trust in the Bible then as we move forward to see why should we, put our trust in the Bible.
Right.
We see this even from the beginning. So that's why we want to stop and make that point at the end of chapter 2. But then we get to chapter 3, a section that many people are familiar with, but we'll just go ahead and read it so that we have the story stated here on video. If you'll read the first 7 verses, please.
Okay, now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God actually say, 'You shall not eat of any tree in the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden. Neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.' So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took off its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths."